and and I've had an opportunity to look back,
Yeah.
just to set, because a lot of times we're moving so forward and we're trying to reach it. We're so focused on our goal, right?
Yeah.
And or whatever we're trying to attain, that we don't all often get a chance to look back.
Yeah.
Not only did I see how far I have come, but to see the marked difference at what that is and where I am now. It's so different. But to look back, you say, wow, how did I come from that and I'm doing
Yeah.
this? It just is amazing
Well, I
sometimes.
remember. I remember.
Good. Yeah,
What's the
go
last
ahead.
time we saw each other? Spain.
Yeah, is that the last time we saw
I'm
each
a magnet
other?
on
Dude,
the
dude, that thing, dude, I will like that is in my. I'm telling you, if I ever get down or feel bad, I'm going to remember that. Dude, that was one of the fun. Dude,
We
do
had a
you realize how
blast.
long we laughed at that thing? We laughed. That is hilarious. Now, my mom had emergency surgery on Friday, so
Oh
on her
wow,
eye. So I've been dealing with her, and that's what I
that's
was
no fun.
doing today. I had to go
Yeah.
run to the store for her to bring her food back. She can't see,
Yeah.
now at all. So,
Yeah.
so
Well, speaking of your mom, uh,
mhm,
one of the things that I always found super interesting about your life
mhm,
and how you came up was
mhm.
that you were raised by a whole passel of women, weren't you?
Absolutely, you
And
remember
that,
that?
yeah, just a whole passel of women.
Yeah,
And I mean, I had two older sisters, and so I kind of understand a little bit of what that's like. But
yeah.
I think it's an interesting aspect of your life, and I think it's a testament to sort of the kind of guy you are. From the first time I met you, you're the most gentle, kind, compassionate guys I ever met. It's one of the things I just was always admired about you.
Oh
And
wow.
could you tell us a little bit about what that was like and how that's affected like the way you move through the world, especially in our this crazy business work?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. So my grandmother and my great grandmother raised me along with my mom, but I lived a lot of the time with my grandmother and great grandmother,
Hmm.
and they did because my mom was a single mom, and so I had my grandmother, great grandmother, my aunts were there at the house, my mom's sister was there, then and my cousins. I was the first boy, and for and before I was born on my mom's side, there were two. My cousins were 1 year and 2 years older than I was,
Yeah.
so I was around them. And then two more. Then my sister was born, and then I had other cousins who were also girls, and I was the only boy. Realized I was really seriously, we're just surrounded like wall to wall women.
Yeah.
I'm a man that can can have a drill in my hand for maybe an hour or so, and then I can have a broom and a dusting cloth in my other hand for another hour. The next hour. So I mean, I'm not. It's not foreign for me to do a load of clothes, to fold them, to make dinner, to what I mean, all of those things that I learned from my grandmother, from my great grandmother. How to
Hmm.
move in the house, how to well basically keep house.
Yeah.
I learned that from them. If I wasn't a participant, I watched it and I caught it. But
Yeah.
most of the time I was a participant. Trust me. My grandmother did not let me go. Like, get over here, get this ready,
Yeah.
come over here, get these baseboards, let's go. Come over here, let's wash these corners of these, get the cobwebs out of the corners of the room. Let's
Yeah, those
go.
baseboards were always sparkling, right?
Oh my
There was no
gosh,
dirty baseboards.
always no dirty baseboards, not in my own. So,
uh,
so it was that kind of thing. But I mean, that's the funny part and the practical part. But I think that the interesting part, and I think what I really gained from them was how women should be treated, because
mhm.
I watched them either be mishandled, treated badly, or make remarks about how they were treated. If I didn't see it firsthand, I heard about it secondhand from them, about how it made them feel, how they were, and I saw the injury. So I
Yeah.
was, I was like, this is the man that I don't want to be, and this
Yeah.
is the man I am going to be. So I think it helped me. I definitely know it helped me. I think it, just even the way that I move with my colleagues now. I mean, if they're women, I mean, we are fortunate to be around very beautiful women and beautiful people. But since we're speaking about women, I'll hold it to women right now. But we are fortunate to be around very beautiful women, and even with all of the beauty and all of the whatever that the women bring, I still am able to see past all of the external beauty and see who they are, and want to know the person and then deal with that person as opposed to dealing with a figure. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it's not just that. And I think that show me different sides to myself, for myself. And then when I go and I'm dealing with a character, I can then turn the character on its head, and it's not one dimensional.
Yeah.
I have I see more than just what's on the surface. And I think that I have to attribute that to how I was brought up and
Yeah.
the lessons that were taught in the house.
It is a different perspective when you're talking a lot. When we hear so much today about toxic masculinity, and
Yes.
about how some of the things that women have had to deal with in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, I mean, for a lot of men, I think that sometimes they don't really understand
That's right.
what that perspective is.
Yeah.
But when you're actually seeing the effect of that happen every single day, and
Yeah.
how that kind of those kind of wounds that
Mm-hmm.
are inflicted on people can manifest themselves. And you're speaking about, this is a first person account because you're actually
Absolutely.
seeing what happens. And
Absolutely.
so many of the stories that we tell are a result of those kind of wounds.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's incredible to see how that sort of manifests itself when you end up working on stage.
Yes, absolutely. And it's I mean you never, I mean you just I mean, come on, please. I didn't know as a kid, I didn't know that any of what I was going through would ever translate or have any relevance in this part of my life.
Yeah.
As being a performer, come on, please. I didn't even think I was going to be a performer, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
means and then to be a performer on the level that I'm on and things
Yeah.
like that. And encountering the level of artists that I've encountered and working with, where we've worked together, and who we have worked with, and what we've encountered with the different, and all of them are so different. I mean,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do. Just the women that were in the show that we were in together, they were all so very different, but there was still one common thread, that they still needed to feel respected, valued, and loved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, and it was not, I mean, that was consistent. You know what I mean? I mean, even though they all expressed themselves differently, they all had their own ways about them. I mean, we've had many conversations and laughed and enjoyed ourselves, just reminiscing about all of the things that we went through and the
Yeah.
times that we have been together on stage, and dealing with the people that we've dealt with. But the point that I'm making is that it's consistent. I mean,
Yeah.
there's one thing that's always consistent there, even though we have differences. And it's funny that you would even say, it's interesting that you would say, we see them from another perspective because we've been exposed to something
Yeah.
else, right? But it's also for the other side as well. And that's not an excuse for men behaving badly, but
Yeah.
some of the times it's their perspective, what they've been through, what they've encountered, what they've seen,
Mm-hmm.
what they've been
With the behaviors that they
taught.
model.
That is no, absolutely,
Yeah.
that's just right. This is my life. This is normal for me. What's the problem? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
How else do you speak
sometimes
to people? Well, not like that. Well, it's
right. Well, not like that, but yeah, but it's okay. But I thought this is the way we spoke to anybody, especially if we
yeah.
spoke when we were talking to,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
we are in an extraordinary time where we've had to put ourselves in other people's shoes for a second, in
Hmm.
order to understand, because to make sense of the madness that has gone on, that still is happening. You do have to put yourself sometimes in other people's shoes, and we're not always able to do that.
Isn't
But
it
I
funny,
have,
Eric, though, that's kind of our job?
yes, oh
Our
yeah,
job is to be empathetic and tell
yes,
stories through another person's perspective.
that's
And
right.
even still, it being a job requirement, sometimes people are so resistant
Yeah, yeah.
to
To
saying, well,
doing
maybe
it
they
in
got a
their
point,
everyday
you know?
life and their regular life, as opposed
Yeah.
to the fantasy life that we live on stage.
Yeah.
Translate that into yeah, it's very interesting. It's just very interesting, and I just know that I don't think that I would be as efficient in it had I not been raised by my. So I go back to still tied into what you brought up in the beginning, and I still think it's tied to the fact that I was raised by some extraordinary women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we both come from communities where our chosen profession, when we go back home, people are like, "You're a what now? You're a who?"
Right.
You know, like, because I come from Cut and Shoot, Texas, and it's a rural, community and very closed
Mm-hmm.
minded,
Yes.
and when I go back, people still not, they're just like, what do you mean you're an opera singer? Like what?
Right.
Like Phantom of the Opera or like soap opera?
Right.
What the hell is that?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
and I imagine you'd have a similar sort of similar sort of result when you go back home and talk about what you do.
Absolutely. I
So
mean,
because
so
you were raised in
in the
Baltimore,
city,
right?
in
Yeah,
Baltimore, in the inner city,
yeah.
in the heart of the ghetto is what I tell right in the heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. That was me right
It's like,
there.
what's that noise? What's the heartbeat?
That's the heartbeat.
Whose heart? The ghetto's heart. Oh, it's loud.
It is,
It's
yes,
loud.
it's resonant.
Someone turn the bass up. It is
That's
loud.
it. I'm telling you. So, but I mean, because that is just, and sometimes I am, through during this time, we've had many conversations with people and panelists, and
Yeah.
everyone wants to know who you are and blah, blah, what makes you tick, how did you get started, what gives you your start, and and I've had an opportunity to look back, just to set, because a lot of times we're moving so forward and we're trying to reach with. We're so focused on our goal, right?
Yeah.
And or whatever we are trying to attain, that we don't often get a chance to look back.
Yeah.
Not only did I see how far I have come, but and really what I thought was so far is really not that far at all. I'm still very close to where I came from, but to see the marked difference at what that is and where I am now, it's so different. But to look back, you say, "Wow, how did I come from that and I'm doing this?" It just is amazing.
Well, I
Sometimes
remember
it's not
when you took me on a tour of your neighborhood that you grew up in that time, and I remember that I was like,
right. That's right, dude. Man,
Eric,
look,
how the fuck did you get out of here, man? and that's the same thing that happens when I took Meg out to back home to my place, and she was like, "This is where you grew up? Jesus Christ, what the hell? How did you get out of here?" And I was like,
dude,
I can make loud noises with my face hole. It just, it was a ticking.
That's right. I know, and then to find someone to discover that, to even point that out to you. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have, come on, please. I'd have been yelling on the court or yelling on the field somewhere and yelling really loud and say, "Oh, well, get Eric to say it. He'll say it. Come, Eric, call me." That basically would have been that. You know what I mean?
That's kind of what happened when the pandemic started. I was like, what am I good for now?
Right.
We can't do things in public. Like the whole point of what I do is that I'm loud enough to be heard without a microphone. That's no good now. What the fuck? My superpower has been. I got kryptonited by COVID.
I have kryptonite now. Yeah, but dude, it's amazing. I mean, and I do remember. I remember where I come from. I do not at all think that, I mean, I know those are my roots. And I mean, that's what grounds me. You know what I mean? It's just like never
people
could
talk
I get
about like
too
an inflection point, like a time when you sort of realized, hey, I'm leaving this. I'm going to a different place. And I mean, you never can. You can't ever leave all behind. It's always a part of you. That's what kind of makes artists that come from sort of unique backgrounds special, because perspective that you can't emulate, you can't pretend,
No.
But for me, like, I don't ever remember there being like a point when I was like, well, I'm out of this thing now, I'm over here. But it was more of a gradual thing. Was it that way for you, or was it more like one day you were like, I'm out, I'm doing this? Because I have this nagging feeling always that at some point the string that's attached to my back, someone's going to just yank that thing and I want to get sucked right back and be stuck there forever.
You know what I fight with more than my person being dragged back there? I try not to let my mindset be drugged back there. And that is I think that's the most restrictive cage or restrictive place that we can put ourselves in is to be captured in our minds by a way, system, you know what I mean? But to think outside of that box, as it were, because I didn't. I just got focused on music, and music took me away from it. I mean, music was always such a powerful crayon in my box.
Yeah.
I mean, just, and the crayon was so magical. I had one crayon, but if I touched certain things, the colors would change. I didn't know what color to do, but then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is a new color. Oh, that's a new color. It was a discovery as I went along, and it still is. I mean, to me, from now, this career, this whole life that we are fortunate to be a part of, to be in, it still surprises me. Some of the colors that will come out of that one crayon. I still just have one crayon, and I think we're all given a crayon, as it were. Find the magic in that crayon. That crayon will change colors for you. It will color a very gray a canvas, and that's what it was. It just colored it, and before I knew it, I was surrounded by these beautiful colors, by these beautiful images, these beautiful, these words took on images. I often, whenever I've been asked, how did I start, how did I get into opera? It was not opera first. It was the art song. It was the Italian art song, early Italian art song. It was the French chanson. It was the German lied. That's what captivated me, especially the German, more than anything else, because, German was very poetic. It was very, all of those words were, you could read them as a poem to your loved one, to your significant other. And it always combined love and nature. It made the correlation between love and nature. And I love the outdoors. So it made sense to me. And then for it also to touch another part of my upbringing, which was very much so growing up in church, because I was raised by my grandmother and my great grandmother, which you've seen, you've been in. I took you with me to my mom.
That church was...
and we went up.
Yeah.
And my mom sat beside you, and she, at one point, she yelled out, and you were like, "Whoa, yes, we alive now. We're here now." So,
I grew up missionary Baptist. It's Baptist, but it's very stoic. It's very like, we didn't even clap. When the song was over, you're not supposed to clap because that's too, you got to give the glory to the Lord, not to that guy. That's not him. It's the power of Jesus. Right. Man, I had never had so much sensory overload in a church service in the best way. I've been to we all do a million churches. I mean,
of course,
concerts in churches, church jobs, churches we grew up in. I probably couldn't describe in detail the inside of my own church that I grew up in, but that church, your church, or your mom's church, that day, man, it is codified in my brain because it was such an amazing experience, And,
and then we had the other church experience we had together when we were working on the show.
I tell this story all the damn time. Because, I mean, it's all well and good. Like, none of us grew up wanting to be fucking opera singers. I mean, everybody I talk to, they're just like, I just wanted to be whatever. Country singer or a pop singer or whatever.
Right.
And gospel singer, I thought
I was going to be a gospel singer. I didn't know, right?
And, man, we went to this church. I forgot was it in Pennsylvania we were?
No, we were in, that was in Detroit.
In Detroit, that's right.
That's Detroit.
And you sang a song, Because He Lives, which is a song that I grew up with. I mean, it's remarkable that I remember this song.
Right. I know.
It's just because he lives, I can face tomorrow. And I remember, I remember you walking in, because I was hanging out with you and sort of, shadowing you.
Right.
And you went to the choir director before the service, and you just had this little conversation. You didn't pray, you didn't even practice. You just said this key, that whatever.
Yeah, right.
And then I was like, it's kind of weird. They're not going to go through it or anything. All right, sweet. All right, let's go. You walk up on that at the lectern at the podium, and you sang it like the most beautiful, like legato line you could possibly imagine. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. And I was like, oh, this is really nice. And then you started going, boom! And the fucking choir, you went, because he lives. And the choir, because he lives. And the organist is like, I literally, it was a religious experience for me. To this day, I think about that all the time. It was
so funny.
Amazing.
It's so funny. It's so funny you say that because we have other colleagues that were there and they say the same thing. You're like, I'm just amazed that came out of your mouth.
Man,
how did you do? What do you But
I
it's
mean,
funny.
there were people who got saved that day, right? I guarantee.
See, this is why we are the friends that we are, because you're crazy. See?
I guarantee you, there's somebody out there. Man.
Yeah, I said that when I go to the second time, I will put a rock a beat with it, do more of a da da da, and he said, "Oh yeah, I got you. He said because I knew he knew, you know what I mean. The church that we went to, I knew that the minister of music would have to know how to do this. I mean, look, it was that type of church, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I said I'll do it straight first, and then I'll go off. I said more unaccompanied the second time. First time he played with me, I said more unaccompanied, and then I will do some riffs, and then we'll pick it up at the very end. And he's like, okay, I got it. He says, no worries. And he said, what key you gonna do? I said, B flat. That's fine. He's okay, great. we finished, and we just went on ahead and started. And as we say in church, the Spirit took over. It was just, it was one of those things.
After when I started getting into opera,
mm-hmm.
and I became an opera singer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I missed about doing like church, like that kind of church, like my version of that, which is
right.
a little more square, and but it was the feeling, like that feeling of like getting the Spirit. And like feeling people like healing, people or people feeling like the music that you were singing was doing something for people.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't, and I spent like 15 years or 10 years like doing opera in a way that never gave me that feeling. I just didn't feel like a bohem. I got a little tingle,
Right.
It wasn't. And
no, you're right, Mike. I mean, that's something to point out. That's the difference in that style and the style that we do. It's very different. But I just try to find a way to affect that, to tap into it some type of way. Something has to ring deeper than just what's on the page to me. And for me to try to capture that a little bit, but it's still very different. I won't say it's not achievable, but it's difficult.
It's hard.
But also it is hard. And but the other thing that what I will do is I will try to put it into the character, so they feel it. They feel whatever that the character is feeling, whether it's whatever, from love to hate, whatever it is in between those two, with all the manifestations and morphs before you get to hate from love. Then I'm going to give you all of that. I wanted to hit you square in the center of your chest. So I try to get it through the character, because I know that the music, not often does it lend itself the same way that that a hymn would do. What I mean?
What are some pieces that you find? I mean, for me, I call it opera with a conscience. So when I do a piece like Dead Man Walking, that's I know that I'm gonna strum some chords.
Absolutely.
When I do Everest, it's got a big suicidal ideation component, which is an issue that I've struggled with my entire life. When I do like 3 Decembers, or Out of Darkness, these pieces that people can really relate to, like the people.
Absolutely.
I find that's a shorter distance. What are some of those pieces for you that you really find that?
Well, I think Life is a Dream for me was written by Jonathan Dove, and that was very poignant subject matter for me. Just because of the abandonment of Segismundo and from his father. By his father, and being encaged or being locked away, because Segismundo was a bit wild and was not tamed and was not cultured, and so he put him away, and that rang true with me because of my upbringing, right? So those feelings. I mean, so when I went into the rehearsal process, I thought I had dealt with my dad and not being raised by him and him leaving and blah, 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 all of that. Dude, when I got into that, all of that began to just come up from the surface. And I mean, there were times in rehearsals where, the director would say, okay, we've had enough for today, because I would have a breakdown. And, and it was, I was like, okay, it's fine. I mean, I'm good now. I'm fine. I'm ready. We can keep going. Like, no.
This was necessary. I needed to have this.
This is that I got what I wanted, basically, I guess. He was saying, I got what I wanted for today. We'll come back. We'll pick this back up again tomorrow. And it was just, and by the time we got to performance, it was Superman. It was really, really something. And I was most proud of that. And I think probably the other role would probably be, of course, I mean, I would be silly if I didn't mention this, but to finally have an opportunity to bring my porgy to the stage was awesome, you know, and I've had the opportunity of doing that twice in 2 productions so far now, you know what I mean? But it's
I've never seen I've seen Crown, but I've never seen.
yeah, you know, the porgy, right? You saw Crown at when we were
Yeah,
we were
I
working in
remember.
the same opera house, but not in the same show at that time.
Right. I remember like when you did Crown, the all the ambulances that were lined up outside of the opera house because all the women having heart attacks.
I'm messing with shit. I'm not messing with shit. I'm not.
My life.
I'm not dealing with you right now. I'm not even going. This is what I'm talking about. We cannot have a straight conversation, a serious conversation, because you are going to try to mess things up.
Yes, people just in the aisle.
Dude, that's so crazy.
Ma'am, it's just an opera. Calm down.
No,
I think I'm pregnant. Oh no.
You're crazy.
But I would crawl over broken glass to see your porgy. I can't.
Yeah, it's just.
Where have you done? Where have you done that?
I did it in E&O, so I did the production that the Met did. So I was the first. We did it first in England, and E&O did it first. Then it went to Amsterdam and then to the Met.
Yeah.
But I only was hired to do the porgies for E&O in England, and then it went to Amsterdam, and I think Eric did it there. Eric Owens did it, and then he did it at the Met. But yeah, that was that production, and then from that production, I got an opportunity to do it in Vienna, in Austria, and that was really nice. I mean, I did that. That was during the pandemic, as a matter of fact.
That's right. You were like
yeah, and we were, and it's so funny. Like I'm talking to you, and you were telling me what you're doing now, that you're performing with masks. Yeah. We had no masks. We performed as if we were in regular times, right? I mean, we were tested every 4 days.
Yeah.
And we sort of encouraged to live in a bubble, as it were, so only be around the people that are in the show, and people adhere to the protocols, and no one caught COVID. That's one. Amazing. I mean, I flew 11 hours over there and flew 11 hours back. Jeez. No COVID, and it was just amazing. I mean, it was an extraordinary situation. So
you've done Porgy and Bess in the States and in Europe, and I think that's a pretty interesting perspective. What was the audience reaction like? Like doing Dead Man in America and then doing Dead Man in Spain. You know, the reaction was, I mean, for one, they were.
And in England, you did it in England too.
Yeah, in England too.
Yeah.
And for them, for non-Americans, seeing their reaction to it was very informative to me about my own country. Did you experience that with doing it in both places?
Absolutely. The subject matter, I mean, it's still there, but it's not in neon colors. It's just in a regular color. And the actual situation or the emotion or the experience emotionally was at the forefront, that was the neon lights in Europe for me. You know, so you get the story. You're telling a love story. You're telling a story of survival, of struggle. You know what I mean? You're really telling that story and not trying to get over, it was segregation, or we were the underdog. You know what I mean? It's just, it's clear. I mean, you don't need to bring that out. I don't think. I think that you need to tell the story and tell what kind of a story are you telling? Is this a love story? Is it a story of desperation? Is it a story of independence? Is it what is it? What kind of story is this? Is it a story, a freedom story? Is it Yeah. And when you are able to tell a story, I think you have more mileage in that than I think what we just continue to run around the bush about is about, this, we just continue to keep it on a race thing and a race issue. I mean, and not that we don't have a problem, and that it does not need to be eradicated, dealt with, addressed. That has nothing to do with it. But to just continue to beat that one thing home and never try to tell a story. Find out what the story is then, or what are you know? I think we miss that it's human. It's human. It's human. And it doesn't matter what color you dress it in. It's the same thing. And if you drop it in the middle of a trailer park, if you drop it in the middle of the desert, if you drop it in the middle of the Sahara, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you drop it in the middle of the sea. It's still the same. It is. What is the story? That story.
It is curious when we look at Porgy and Bess. We say, oh, not we, but the industry, whatever. We say, oh, that's a black story. That's it. We got to do this story because it's about the black people. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, just like Tosca isn't about politics, and Labo isn't about fin du siècle Paris. Right. It's a love story. That's ultimately that's what it is. And when you lean into that aspect of it,
absolutely.
I mean, that's when you really create empathy.
That's when you create it. And I mean, and then people can see, and then you allow people to see it through your eyes, because they actually, now you've given them license to pick up the glasses and say, oh wow, these actually fit me.
I'll be damned.
Oh wow. Wait a minute. This might be my this is my prescription. I can see out of it, as opposed to like, these are clearly not my glasses. I can see a thing.
These are clearly not
what I mean? Because as soon as I say it's a black story, I mean, how am I going to pick it up if I am, I don't know, if I'm whatever other, if I'm other than black, how will I see it? Because I'm like, these are definitely not my glasses, and I throw the glasses right down. I mean, throw them down, not even, because if these are your glasses, you would never throw them down because you don't want them to break. Yeah. Because I need these to see, and I want people to have a need to see what I'm talking about, where I'm coming from. And I think that's why the arts, they are so important, and why they are so powerful, because we actually give people an opportunity to see what really makes life, and what really makes a situation a real situation, as opposed to, these clearly are not mine. These are yours. No, this is ours. We are a human race, and we all go through these same situations. Yeah. All these same situations. I don't care how you dress it up. Poverty is poverty.
Yeah.
Abuse is abuse. Being mishandled is being mishandled. I don't care where you are.
The human condition is universal.
The human condition is universal, and it does not. It's not. You can dress it up any way you want, but it's still going to be. It still beats. I mean, it's such a great point, but that we are unpacking right now. I think it's one that needs more emphasis on it. Especially, but I mean, whatever. I mean, even if there's no emphasis put on it. In every opera house we go to, but we know that whenever the emphasis is placed on that, you get a great show.
I call it artistic terrorism.
Absolutely.
Like, we just go in there and set off a big old empathy bomb. You can't dodge it, buddy. Like,
nope. Yeah, we just going. And I mean, I saw your Dead Man Walking. I mean, I was fortunate to see it in Spain, and dude, it was so moving. I mean, it transported me from my seat. I mean, and not many, we don't have those experiences all the time. I mean, look, we are performers ourselves, so we know sort of like the magic of theater, what it really is. If you are a magician, you know what it is. I know how he did that. Oh, I know how she did that. Whatever the magician is up on stage, you say, oh, I know how he did that. So when I sat there in that theater, I was transported, and I mean, the performances given by you, given by your mom,
Maria Zivchak.
Maria.
Yeah, I was like, was it Susan? No, it was Maria.
No, it was Maria. So
fucking sublime, man.
I mean,
God damn.
Awesome. I mean, she did one thing. She turned her head one way and put her hand over her mouth. The way she did that. Dude, I broke. It just broke me down. I was sitting there.
We all see our moms.
Are tears coming out of my eyes? Am I seeing in my eyes this man right here, before God and everybody in this theater? I was looking out the corner of my eye to make sure the person next to me was not like saying, "Are you okay?" I want to make sure before they would ask me if I'm okay. I was going to say, "I'm fine." But
I'm fine, but
dude, I couldn't even.
I'm
I
gonna need
couldn't
some
even say
counseling,
anything. I was just like, you know what? Just go ahead and let them fall. And it
man.
was just amazing, dude. It
All
was
due
just
respect
amazing.
to everybody who sung that role, and
Yeah.
nobody touches Maria.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
she's retired now. Actually, she's
Did
the
she? She's still
pandemic hit,
taking
and
care
she
of her
was like, you know
doggy.
what, this is
Oh,
bullshit. I've been doing this long enough. I'm going to Central Pennsylvania, and I'm going to kick my feet up and relax. And she's deserved.
dude. Oh, she was
She's worked her tail
well,
off for years, but
awesome, awesome artist. I mean,
yeah,
you know, and right along with you, and you know, just it was just awesome, man.
yeah,
Dude, it was an awesome experience, and like I said, not every opera does not do that to us. Like I said, because we are opera singers, we're performers, but it's so wonderful when it happens. It's so
yeah,
unexpected, and when it happens, you say,
yeah.
this is why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I went, and I mean, and when I know it's right, I wanted to find a stage so badly, insane. I
Yeah,
wanted to go and before it provoked me to want to do what I do. I was like,
yeah.
when is my next performance? You
Look
know, I
out
was
there.
like, let's get on the stage, let's go. You know, I mean, I was so hyped. It was so motivating. You
It
know,
really is like a sine
yeah,
wave, you know what we do? Like
yeah,
we'll have one of those experiences, and then like, oh, I gotta go down to the valley for a while.
yeah,
Do you find like it's so incredibly like it almost makes you angry when it doesn't happen? You're like, I know it's possible. Why can't we
yeah.
get there?
That is the truth. I'm go ahead on and just admit it.
Yeah,
Sometimes I am just frustrated. I'm just sitting there, just frustrated, and I'm biting my teeth. I am, I am. I'm biting my teeth, I'm biting my tongue or whatever, teeth,
yeah,
tongue, whatever. I'm biting them all and just like, what in the world is, what am I, what, why am I here? What is
yeah,
happening? What is happening?
yeah,
We're not going to achieve what we want to achieve here. We want to move people here now.
yeah.
Why are we not? Why have we not dipped into the real issue? Why are we skirting around? You know, all the kind of things I've said and been frustrated. But you know what I noticed is that it just that then what it does for me is it provokes me to get on my the highest A game that I have. You know what I mean? I say, well, I have to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm responsible for what I'm supposed to do. I'm taking what the information I'm given. I am going to take the direction that I'm given, and I am going to work it. I'm going to
Mhm.
stretch. I'm going to stretch this out as far as I can. I'm going to, pull it.
Squeeze, like
Yeah,
wring that shit
squeeze.
out, man.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly. And then it just pulls on you, the artist, and you do your work, you do your job, and you leave and you say, that was not what I wanted it to be, but it was a great performance.
yeah.
It was a great, and you can say that at the end of it because everybody pulled it together, not just you sitting on stage, everyone was there doing it. So
Yeah, it is exhausting. I
it
tell
is
you, like
exhausting,
that's
but
when
to your
it's
point,
right,
it is very
you
frustrating.
feel wrung out. When it's right, you're like, who wants to go part? Not me, man. I'm going to
Yeah,
bed.
bad. I know. Like I am done.
I mean,
Like
we're also old, so like that's a new
well,
thing.
you know what I'm saying? Don't even talk to me. How could you bring that up? Huh?
How dare, how dare you?
How dare you? How very dare you, right? Look, dude, we met in
Late
our
20s, early
20s.
30s, late 20s,
Yes,
I think.
late
Yeah,
20s. Isn't that
in
crazy?
that masterpiece we were working on back then.
Stop it. But look, dude, don't even look, dude. But look, I'm grateful for that masterpiece as I would have never met you, brother.
Me too, man.
I mean, come on, please.
Those
Look,
experiences we had are just invaluable.
look,
I'm the
dude.
motherfucking director.
The line is still funny today, dude,
It's
because it brings back. He said, "La, la, la, la." I was like, gotta go. It was like that. It was that moment in Color Purple when the guy said it. When the woman slapped Oprah Winfrey, who was playing the Hoppo's wife, right?
yeah.
Slapped her. He was like, "Oh, time to go." And he slammed the piano. And he was up. Dude, it was one of those moments. You're like, "Oh, time to go."
Oh, I see. I'm glad they marked the exits here because I've got to find one right now.
Find your nearest exit and use it. And we were like, I found mine. I'm out.
Yeah.
Peace. Yeah. So.
I want to talk about something that is a story that you told, and I'm maybe I could be conflating this story, and I want to make
Okay.
sure it's accurate before I put it on here.
Okay.
But I remember way back you were talking about being up for a Pagliacci.
Oh, look at you. Look at
And
you, dude. You have a great memory. I already know where you're going. So you
yeah,
said Pagliacci and took me right back to it. Yeah.
and we're at a time now when we're really, and speaking of being older,
Mm-hmm.
when we were coming up, there's just these kind of things people didn't talk about them.
Mm-mm.
Or they did, but it was just like, that's just, fuck it up, suck it up.
Right. It's the way it is,
It's
right?
just the way it is. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want to, you don't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you said that the Ned that they had cast was a pretty blonde lady.
A blonde bombshell.
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
And the reason that you didn't get cast as Sylvia was because
I
you're a
was
big
too tall,
big
dark,
black
and
dude.
handsome. Yeah, yeah. But that's the way my manager told me I was too tall, dark, and handsome.
Yeah.
So that's where he put it. So I already knew what it was saying.
I think. I mean, the reason I bring that up is because today we have, it's definitely on the forefront. We're all talking about it now.
Right.
But like, there's one thing for it to happen today,
Mm-hmm.
when we there would be other people that would say, hey, this is fucking out of bounds. No.
Right.
And back when this was happening to you, there was just no recourse. You couldn't literally put them on blast. Number one, the internet didn't fucking exist like it does today. But you couldn't put them on blast and say, this is outrageous. You could do that today.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you then? I mean, and
Well,
how has that
I mean,
affected you throughout the years? And I'm sure that's not the only experience that you had.
no, that's not the only one. Right. It definitely affected me. And it affected, and it still affects me today, to be honest, but not in the same way, but in the way that this is the way that it still affects me. I'll say it this way, where I have to make sure I unzip that hat or whatever that is, whatever that covering or that blanket is that's in my mind that covers. I have to unzip it and take it off. That has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you, Eric. You're going to go in there and you're going to do what you do, as far as if it's an audition or whatever. You're going to go in and you're going to do what you're going to do, and you're going to walk out and you're going to forget about it. And it's going to be whatever the case, whatever the reasons are that you don't get the job, or the reasons that you do get the job, has nothing to do. It's the same way when they say, "Oh, we're looking for a black person," and it's the same thing for me. I mean, it's there's no different in the same thing, because I just think we should be looking for the right artist. That's the way I feel. About anything, but nevertheless, it still affects you, because you still are reminded and still have to be as if this is something that's so erotic. We have to have this. You have to have a black person, or when you start calling us silly things like that. I think in the art form like opera. I mean, come on, please. I mean, anytime we have people up there who are in their 50s singing Madame a Butterfly.
Yeah.
And she's 15 years old.
Here we go. I believe that. Totally. But
yeah.
I can't believe this interracial couple. Outrageous.
Right. I mean, I just think, I think we were always pushing that envelope for, to suspend our belief for a second. Yeah. I mean, we're constantly doing it. We do it for certain things, but we can't do it for another. I just don't understand how you can do it for this, but you can't do it for that.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about something as great as we are when we speak about art. Yeah. Art, it transcends all of that other junk. I mean, even even our egos, it transcends all of that. Yeah. Because it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than bringing it down to this crap. We bring it down to such a crap level when we do that. So anyway, you asked me another question. I went off on another small tangent. But
hey, that's great.
It affected me. It did affect me. And I felt, I felt small. I felt small. I felt like that I wasn't good enough. And then I started to doubt myself of whether this is where I should, because it was very early in my career. Do I have what it takes to keep pushing through this? Because I already knew. I mean, I was prepared by my voice teacher, by different other coaches that I had come from high school, and they told me, this is the life that you're going to choose, but this is how it's going to be hard because you are a Black male. And so that's never been something that I've not been aware of. I don't need anybody to remind me that I'm Black. I mean, I see myself that I'm brown. My skin is brown. I know that, and I understand that. But when I look at it, do I say, oh my gosh, I can't do this because I'm brown? No, man, no, sir. No, ma'am, and no, sir. I never look at myself in the mirror and see limitations because of what I see in the mirror. Nothing that reflect that I see coming back at me makes me think that I am unable. Yes, you may. That's my little point. So.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, but nothing, and I just, it's so unfortunate that I mean, because I know how I felt, and I'm sure others have felt that same way. You feel like you're not enough, and anyone that can sit in a seat and have the power to make somebody feel less than should not be sat in that seat. Should never be sitting in that seat. Never, 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 ever, 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 never. Because everyone's life is valuable. Those are Jacob's. Okay, well, you can have them.
Love it.
No one should ever, they shouldn't have the seat. They should have the seat because everyone's life is valuable. Everyone has something to contribute. And I mean, it just no. And I mean, we can't go around, with kid gloves dealing with people's feelings. No, I mean, I'm not saying that. No. But just to plainly put out to someone that because of who you are, you're less than, or that's not right.
Yeah,
that's not right. I mean, and I don't even have an interest to go back and pull out every story and tell how this happened, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't. To go back, it doesn't matter. For me to go back, it makes me revisit how I felt.
Yeah,
and I don't want to feel that way. And I'm just, I try to be honest with how I feel in a situation, and I try to be brave enough to say something, because I still remember what my grandmother said to me. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. She said you can say anything you want to anybody, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I've tried to, and basically what she was saying, if you say what you're saying in love, it will not be misunderstood or taken out of context if you speak it in love. And that's why I think that I move the way I move, and do, because I don't have I just don't have the time. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the patience, and I will not pour energy into it. I refuse to. I just refuse. I just, you're ignorant, and therefore the conversation is over between the two of us, and I'm gone, and I leave. And he's like, well, you just stay and explain. They're gonna stand. Why? Why am I explaining to you? You're human, like I am. Put yourself in my shoes as a human. Not even as, you have to wear my skin. Just put yourself as a human. How would you feel if somebody did that to you? If someone did that to someone you love, someone did that to a child of yours, your child came back home and said, this was said to me, Dad. This was said to me, Mom. And if you think, okay, that's fine, that's nothing wrong, then keep on doing it. But I know that no one would want to be treated like that. No one want any of those kind of things said to them. And that's in every situation. That's in all of the situations. Anything you can think of, it would be that same way.
Yeah. I know that's a painful subject. I know it's painful.
But it's it is a painful subject, but it's but I don't mind, and I don't mind unpacking it with people I know that love and care about me. You know what I mean? Or if I'm in a situation where I know that it will directly help someone, but just to go over it, for what? Because it's not like this is a new subject, Mike. It's not like we just encountering this month,
right?
And in this year, we've been doing since the beginning of all of this. The time it's been since the beginning of of everything. We've been dealing with this same silly issue, and it's so silly to me. I'm like, what is the big deal? We are all
just lay it on the table. Look, I can tell you,
same. We're all different, but yet the same. You know what I
I
mean?
have changed my,
Yes,
from way
of
back. I
course.
used to be
Like, yeah,
crazy
yes, I
Republican,
got you.
like
I
conservative
got
dude.
you, dude.
And you know, society changed me, and the opera business changed me and changed my perspective and all that stuff. But the thing that had the most profound impact on my cultural, my philosophical shift was stories that I heard from my friends about their experiences. And this one, the reason why, I mean, this is probably, we're probably 30 years old, 28, something like that when we talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
It is in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that it pulled back the curtain
Mm-hmm.
and it allowed me, this white dude from the South,
Mm-hmm.
who was told
Mm-hmm.
all the time growing up that this is all a myth, that all
Mm-hmm.
these things that don't happen. It's just the race hustlers that are lying to you about things that are happening that aren't. And when I actually see the impact of what this has on
Mm-hmm.
people that I love and care about, that's what changed my mind.
Right.
That's
Right.
what changed my mind. And
Yep.
so, like, I mean, talking about it today is one thing, but you
Mm-hmm.
spoke about this frankly in what, the early 2000s, the late 90s, somewhere
The
in
late
there,
night, yeah, 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 early 2000s, yeah, early
which is a
2000s.
different time, even though it
Absolutely.
feels weird to say.
No, I know. It was a
It's
different time.
basically like, when we were growing up, it's the 60s.
Yeah, I know.
To
Yeah,
everybody else, to kids today,
yeah,
they're like, way back in the 90s, it
right.
was us who were like, remember the hippies from the 60s? I
Right
mean,
from the 60s, right, exactly.
so,
I know.
I mean, I appreciate, just from a personal standpoint, like, I can
Yeah,
say that I really appreciate you
yeah.
being so, I mean, trusting me, even though
I know, and that's what and that's
ahead
another
of time.
thing, exactly, and that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to highlight, lift this out a little bit. What you were saying, this is not anything. I don't ever sit around and just go over. Oh, let me tell you about my war stories and tell you that.
Hmm.
That's not anything that I do. But it was a moment. It was a moment. I think we may have been cracking open a couple beers. I don't
Yeah,
know. And sitting, I don't know where we even were. Oh, we could have been on the beach. I think we were on the beach
maybe New
there,
Smyrna.
probably.
Yeah,
But it was, but just that time it was just right, and we were just sharing, and and that was a part of our bonding. You know what I mean? I think about different moments in my life, and a lot of those moments, and some of those important moments, especially during that time, you were involved in that.
mm.
From moving from my house to one house to another. I mean, that whole crazy thing we were going through from Florida all the way to Detroit, from Detroit, from Florida all the way to North Carolina. As a matter of fact, that's when
Yeah,
that whole
yeah.
thing really stopped.
That was a journey.
Dudes. I mean, so we went from Philly to Cincinnati. We went all over with all that,
Yeah,
but it ended for us. You and I on stage together, playing roles that marked a time in life where we would not have been friends.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yet we are standing on stage bonded by our experiences
yeah.
and by our stories
Having
and the
having to
truth.
watch somebody else do our roles for
Yes,
4 different productions until we got a chance to do
absolutely,
it together.
absolutely,
You know.
absolutely, and knowing what we would want to do with them, and sitting there and seeing it and seeing how there are more dimensions to this, and
Yeah,
I have the opportunity to show that if I'm ever, and all of the, I mean, just the growth that the work took us on. I mean, I believe and I believe that the work opened that door, opened that path for us to walk down. We were
yeah,
able to walk down. I mean, and I met your parents. I
yeah.
met your sister. I mean, it just, the thing is,
Mom and Dad talk about you every
all that's what I'm
time.
saying.
They're
And it's
like,
not like
"How's Eric doing?"
yeah, and it's not like it's like, oh, I don't know. No, your mom knows me. My mom knows you. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's real. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it's just it's that's the beauty of this awesome art form that we are a part of.
yeah,
That our lives do come together. They can bleed over into one another's lives, and we're changed by it. We're changed because we get to see another side, another perspective. And then I was going to lastly say was that exposure. You know, and that's why even with my kids, I try to expose them to things, because then you understand who a person is when you
Yeah.
see where they come from, where they, you know, and eat the food they may eat. You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's, we hear that and we're like, oh yeah, no, but it's so true,
Mm-hmm.
because then, you know, you just, certain things you won't say. You just won't say. I mean, I've heard things, I grew up, you know, and people say about going to a Jewish deli and how they speak about the food. My kids would never ever say anything crazy like that,
Yeah.
because you know, they you know, they've sat. I mean, we have sat at a Passover, a supper, you
Yeah.
know, prepare, you know, and understanding what's going on. And never, I mean, this, and I mean, if I didn't have the exposure, you know, I could be um programmed to just say ignorant things and to
Mm-hmm.
be ignorant. You know, basically that's what it is. It's ignorance, and not in a derogatory way. If for the definition version
Well,
of that
it's
word,
just
not
easier to
knowing
retreat back into your corner
and not know,
and
and
just
because
get.
you
I'm just
just
like
don't
this.
know.
I'm comfortable.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I do have one complaint
Tell
about
me.
our relationship,
Okay, so
and it's that we sing the same shit. Because that means we never get to work
we
together.
just say anything we never work together. Right?
That
I
is
mean, we
the
could always do.
complaint.
Look, I would totally be Leporello to your
Oh
Giovanni.
man, someone make that happen. Someone make that happen.
And not a problem.
I
I have
may,
no
I
problem
may,
with that.
I may have to sing Leporello because if they're saying like Don Giovanni and Leporello, I don't think that I could out Giovanni you, dog. If there's a choice, the ladies aren't going to pick me, man.
Dude, either way, and look, we don't mind. We'll exchange either of those roles. We go back and forth. You
We
know,
could
you
do it.
do it one night,
We
I
could
do
do
it the next
both. I
night.
like that
Yeah,
idea.
exactly. We can just go back and forth. Yeah. But I gotta learn both, so let's don't say.
Yeah, wait, never mind. That's too many words. Well, hey man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and
Thank you
I'm
for
glad that I
inviting
finally
me.
got my podcast chops polished enough to be able to do it justice. Because
Thanks, man.
Eric, I just like, if there's ever somebody in the world that I would hold up as an example of an incredible colleague and the kind of person that I wish everybody was like in our business, it's you.
Mm.
And
Oh man.
I have admired you not only as an artist but as a human being and a man. Seeing your family and how that's all, it's just really inspiring to me. And I love the shit out of you, man. And I miss seeing
Oh,
you. I miss
dude,
seeing you.
dude. Look,
Yeah.
the feeling is absolutely mutual. I mean, I love, and the thing I love is to see. I love to know. I knew the Mike before. I knew the Mike during, and I know the Mike now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no matter all the changes that you made, there was still a constant thread. Is that you and I? And once I met your mom, I said I know where this comes from because of mom. I mean
Gloria.
that
Yeah.
heart, that passion.
Yeah.
You know, and you were whatever you were about, you were passionate about it. You know what I mean? And like now, I mean, I've always been a fan of yours, especially when I hear you. We use the word, and I don't mean this in a usually when I use it, you know, I'm using it as a to make fun a little bit, but this is not it making fun at all. I love to hear you pontificate about anything
Yeah.
because you're you know just you know we can have these crazy conversations, we can laugh and cut the rug, chew the rug, act crazy, use colorful metaphors, or or use broken English or whatever. But then when you pull out, you go into your arsenal of vocabulary. Because I'm a word man. I love words. And then you pull out these words. I'm like, dude, that's my dude right there. He's good, right?
Where'd this guy? He find the dictionary in that trailer park somewhere.
I love it. Because I'm there. I'm such a nerd when it comes to words. I'm just such a word.
Yeah.
I'm such a word nerd. But I'm telling you, man, I have to say the feeling is mutual. And it's not me trying to blow you back up because you said something nice about me. You know I feel this way. You know what I mean? But I'm just grateful that I'm able to say it on air, and whoever else can hear it. If they don't know you, when they do meet you, they're going to meet the man that I know, and they're going to enjoy it. And I do appreciate you asking me to be on your podcast. I think it's so wonderful. I think it's so great that we're able to, because you know me, so you know what to ask, you know what stories to go back to. I'm amazed that you even remember any of all of these things. I didn't know you. We just don't sit around and talk about this like this, you know. So for you to go back to conversation. I mean, and know it, have it. I'm just like, oh, that's great. You know,
and it's not true with everybody. I can tell you. All the time, people are like, "You remember that time?" And I'm like, "No." I smoked a lot of weed back in those days. So I don't really need it. It's just kind of a blank. But before it, you know. All right, man. It was so good to see you. I love you to death.
Same here. Same here. Love you too. And have a great rest of your performances, brother.
You know it, man.
All right.
I call him Jackass Camillo.
Give it to him. Give it to him. Give it to him. Whatever it is, whatever form, you give it to him.
Right on, man. I'll see you.
All right, brother.